You ever get that feeling that your family runs on a set of invisible rules? You know, like a hidden script that everyone just knows but nobody ever talks about? Well, in this explainer, we're going to unlock that script. We're diving into the powerful, unseen forces that shape our closest relationships. Let's get into it.
So let's kick things off with this incredible line from August Wilson's masterpiece, Fences. It's such a powerful metaphor, and it really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Fences, right? They can be for protection, but they can also become prisons. And that's not just true for the wooden fences in our backyards, but for the emotional ones we build around our families.
To really understand this, we need to meet the man who's literally building the fence in the story, Troy Maxson. His story is this incredible character study set in 1950s Pittsburgh, and honestly, it's the perfect key to unlocking these hidden family dynamics. See, Troy is a man who was completely haunted by his past. He was an amazing baseball player, truly gifted, but he was denied a real career in the major leagues because of racial segregation. And that bitterness, that dream that was stolen from him, it doesn't just stay in the past. Oh no, it spills out into everything he does, and it poisons his relationship with his son Corey, whose own dreams of playing college football he just actively crushes.
And this, right here, this is the central question. Troy genuinely believes he's protecting Corey from facing the same heartbreak he did, but in the process, he's inflicting this entirely new kind of pain. So why? Why does this happen? Well, to solve this puzzle, we have to look beyond just Troy and Corey as individuals and see the entire family system that's at play.
Okay, so now we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're moving from the story itself to a really powerful theory that helps us decode it. This is where we start to find those invisible rules I was talking about at the beginning.
All right, so Dr. Murray Bowen came up with this pretty game-changing idea. He basically said that a family isn't just a bunch of people living under one roof. Nope. It's an emotional unit. Think of it like a single body. If you pinch one part, the whole thing feels it. The members are so connected that they're basically living under the same emotional skin.
Now, check out this analogy because it's perfect. Bowen compared a family's emotional system to a herd of cattle. If one cow gets spooked, that anxiety can just rip through the entire herd in a split second. It's automatic, it's unconscious, and that is exactly what happens in families. One person's stress instantly becomes everybody's stress.
So, where do these emotional patterns even begin? And why do they seem to stick around for generations? To figure that out, let's look back at the Maxson family, but this time through this new lens.
This leads us to a really crucial concept, the multi-generational transmission process. Okay, it's a mouthful, I know, but it's a simple, powerful idea. It means we inherit our emotional blueprints, the good stuff and the bad stuff, from our parents, who got them from their parents, and on it goes. We're not just talking about genetics here. We're talking about the emotional programming we get from day one.
And boom, this is the perfect illustration. The reason for Troy's harsh, really cruel parenting style wasn't just his own personal bitterness about baseball. It was a direct echo of the relationship he had with his own abusive father. Without even realizing it, he was passing down the exact trauma that made him who he was. The pattern was just repeating itself.
So, with all this tension and anxiety floating around, how do families even cope? Well, one of the most common ways is something Bowen called a triangle. A one-on-one relationship is actually pretty unstable, so when the stress gets too high, the system almost automatically pulls in a third person to spread out the tension, like a release valve. As you can see here, the tension doesn't just stay between the two people in conflict. It gets redirected through that third point of the triangle. But here's the catch, and this is a big one. This doesn't actually solve the problem. It just stabilizes things for a little while by spreading the anxiety around. If we look at the Maxsons, it's a textbook example. The main conflict, the core conflict, is between Troy and Corey. But Troy's wife, Rose, is constantly being pulled in as that third point. She's always trying to mediate, to calm things down, to basically soak up all the emotional damage. And what's the result? The huge gap between the father and son never, ever gets fixed. It just gets managed, day after day, through her.
Now, this isn't just about fictional characters in a play. These dynamics create these predictable roles that real people, like you and me, play in our own families, a lot of the time without even knowing it. Let's go through a few and see if any of them sound familiar. So, these roles aren't really about who you are deep down. They're more like survival strategies you picked up as a kid just to cope with the emotional climate in your home. They're a way to find some kind of balance in a system that feels totally out of whack. The thing is, these roles can follow us right into adulthood, shaping our jobs, our relationships, and how we see ourselves.
First up, we've got the hero. This is the kid who brings home the good grades, the trophies, the pride. They're responsible, successful. As an adult, they're often a classic overachiever, maybe a bit of a workaholic. But underneath all that, they're carrying this deep-seated fear of failure because they feel like their worth is completely tied to their accomplishments.
Then there's the scapegoat. This is often the so-called problem child. They act out, they get into trouble, and they get blamed for all the family's issues. But really, their behavior is just a symptom of the family's dysfunction. It's a convenient distraction from the real problems nobody wants to face. As adults, they often feel really misunderstood and can have a tough time with authority. And finally, we have the lost child. This kid's strategy for dealing with family chaos is just to disappear. They get really quiet, they fly under the radar, they don't cause any trouble. As adults, they're usually pretty independent, but they can really struggle with feeling lonely and have a hard time forming close, intimate relationships. Just recognizing these patterns, that's a huge, huge first step. But the most important question is, are we just doomed to repeat them? The answer, thankfully, is no. Let's talk about how you can actually break the cycle. Trying to change this kind of deep, inherited emotional programming can feel like trying to stop a tidal wave with your bare hands. It's tough, but as powerful as these patterns are, it is absolutely possible to change the script. It really boils down to two key steps. First, just awareness. Simply seeing the invisible system for what it is and understanding the role you've been playing in it. Second is responsibility, and this part is crucial. This isn't about blaming anyone or trying to fix your entire family. It's about taking ownership of your reactions and your behaviors. You can't control the whole system, but you can always control your response to it.
So let's bring this all the way back to where we started with Troy's son, Corey. At the end of the play, years have passed, and Corey comes home for Troy's funeral, and he is just filled with resentment. At first, he refuses to even go. He's standing right at a crossroads, facing that same cycle of bitterness that completely consumed his dad.
But he makes a different choice. He chooses to see his father not just as the man who hurt him, but as a complicated person who was shaped by his own painful history. He sees the fence his father built, but he chooses not to be trapped behind it. He breaks the multi-generational pattern.
And so, that leaves us with one final question. A question for you to think about. We all build fences in our lives, and one way or another. The key is to ask yourself, is that fence really protecting you, or is it trapping you inside a pattern? What fence are you building, and who is it really for?